Hey, thanks for joining us live. It's the Frank Figliuzzi Show, trying to bring you the best of our guests. And you are, before I bring our guest on and thank her for joining us, I'm going to thank the viewers out there who actually encouraged me to invite Jenn Budd on our show. You were right. I needed to bring her on. And you know what? I listened. And here she is. Let me introduce her first. She is a former senior patrol agent with the Border Patrol. She served in the 1990s for about 6 years. And importantly for our discussion today, she resigned. She resigned as a matter of protest. We're going to talk about the circumstances around that. She's the author of 2 books, one just out this week, which I've read and I highly recommend. We'll talk about her books. Her first was a memoir called Against the Wall, My Journey from Border Patrol Agent to Immigrant Rights Activist. We'll get into that. Very courageous person to write a book like that. And then the second, which again, I encourage you to pick up. You can get it on Kindle or ebooks. It's very reasonably priced. And it is What Everyone Needs to Know. And boy, do we need to know. Without further ado, let's bring on Jenn Budd.
Hey, Mr. Frank Figliuzzi.
Thanks for joining us, Jenn. I'm excited to have you, particularly, correct me if I'm wrong, but your new book is out this week.
Yeah. I think it originally dropped on, Amazon really fast because they're the big pusher of ebooks. But now it's out on all of the platforms, the different platforms for ebooks. And we decided to do it that way instead of print, just because we felt we needed to get it out as fast as possible.
Right.
It's just a primer, a very quick 60 pages on who these agencies are, what their authorities are, who their leaders are, a little bit about their background, and what we can do in the future about these agencies. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there real fast.
I'm glad you did. It is much needed. I guarantee our viewers will learn something. I learned a couple of things, and I thought I knew a lot about the DHS agencies. And I was reminded of some things that we're going to talk about because they're shocking. So I want to start with, as they say, start at the beginning. Let's just start with your journey into the Border Patrol. What attracted you to the job? What made you say, you know what, I'm going to give that a shot?
I had graduated from Auburn University, go Tigers, War Eagle, in 1993, the winter of 1993. And I had decided, I was kind of on my way to law school. I wanted to be a civil rights attorney. I thought maybe I would do a little stint, maybe in the U.S. Attorney's Office to learn that side of it. And this thing called the Border Patrol was hiring in the mid-90s under the Clinton administration with a crime bill. And someone had said, it's like the FBI, but on the border. And I had never even heard of the U.S. Border Patrol, to be honest with you. I'm from Alabama. We don't have Border Patrol in Alabama, except in Mobile, a couple guys maybe. But
and by the way, we're going to talk about places that don't think they have Border Patrol, but do.
Well, they do. And they're all over the place now, certainly, but not so much in the 90s. And I honestly had come from a very violent, abusive home life. I graduated and went back home and was like, oh, I need to get out of here. And so they offered me a job in San Diego, and they said, I'm kind of a punk rocker from the 80s, but I tell you what, I love my country music and my cowboy hats, and it sounded like a great adventure. And so that's why I joined the United States Border Patrol.
Yeah, sunny San Diego, nothing wrong with that either.
And the FBI wouldn't hire me, Frank, because my degree was in criminal law and not in Russian or languages. So
I'm sorry that we didn't hire you.
I wish you
but
had.
Yes, there's kind of a myth out there that, they must all have criminal justice degrees. No, quite frankly, no. And so
and to get to your level, you got to have further education.
Yeah, I get a lot of young people coming up to me, not to digress here, but a lot of young people going, I'm majoring in criminal law because I want to be an FBI agent. I go,
that's the worst degree.
No. Anyway, let's talk about why we're here, which is walk us through your training experience. at the Academy for Border Patrol? What does that look like? And what are you hearing it looks like today?
It's, I mean, it's more advanced. Obviously, when I joined, we were just starting to get computers out to the very small stations and so forth, and just starting to get things like cameras and sensors. But in the academy, so I went through the one in Glenn County, Georgia, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center there, and that was 4 months back then. After 9/11, they shortened it to less than 2 months. So, and it's kind of what we're going through now, where when they try and push a lot of people through, they shorten it. But even the 4 months wasn't very good, Frank. I mean, honestly, I went into it with a basic understanding of the law, and I was just astonished at what they were teaching agents, that the Fourth Amendment does not exist on the border. People do not have the right to protection against, unwarranted searches and seizures from us immigration agents. We are told that we have more power, and the Constitution, and as far as the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, not to implicate yourself in crimes, and even due process of the 14th Amendment just don't exist for immigrants. And that's the way that we are trained. We are trained that we can racially profile, and we've been trained that since 1924. And the Supreme Court has agreed with it since all that time. Kavanaugh just reaffirmed it, quite honestly.
That's right.
But within, 100 miles of any land or water barrier, and that's 2/3 of the United States population. Most people don't realize that.
That's right.
Not just the southern border. We can pretty much do what we want. And unlike in criminal law, Frank, when you would go and arrest somebody for something, you probably had to get them to a judge within about 48 hours, according to the law. In immigration, there's no such law, because immigration is considered to be civil law.
Right.
And there's nothing in the Constitution or the law that says that we have a time limit for as long as.
Let's hit the pause button, because you just said things that we can't gloss over.
That just blow your mind, right?
Yeah, I want our viewers to kind of process this, because it's going to take them a while.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you just said is within 100 miles of the border, which is about what, 2/3 of the United States?
It's 2/3 of where the United States population lives. So 2/3 of the population is affected by that.
Okay. So, and you essentially don't have Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure when it comes to Border Patrol stopping you. Do I have that right?
You have that right. And so when you think about your local and state police, let's say you're driving around, you're going to the grocery store, the police have to have probable cause to stop you, or they have to have reasonable suspicion to stop you for a traffic violation, because traffic violations are minor. But if they want to stop you for like drugs or something, they got to have some probable cause, right? So they have to have a reason. They have to have seen you do a drug deal or something like that, right? And because you can't look at somebody, typically you're not supposed to look at somebody and be able to tell their immigration status. Border Patrol, immigration agents from Border Patrol, ICE, and Customs and Border Protection, which is CBP, they only need reasonable suspicion. So your very presence around where we consider there to be high smuggling activity and the color of your skin, boom, 2 causes, I got you. Yep. I can stop you for anything. Yeah. And so I can literally stop you for anything, make it up. Your car's heavily laden, your car's looks like it's riding too high. You didn't look at me when you passed. You looked at me too long when you passed. And we can just make it up and basically stop you for anything. And at our checkpoints, our Border Patrol checkpoints, we only need mere suspicion. So the fact that you are driving on a road that our checkpoint popped up on, you have to stop. And if you don't, I'm going to flatten your tires.
That's right.
So that's the way it's going to go. And then we just start digging until we get to where we want to be and charge you with.
And what about, is there a differentiator for within 20 miles of a border?
So there is a 25-mile differentiation for Border Patrol agents on the border. And that difference is, we do not need a search warrant to go onto your personal property and search buildings and outhouses and all that other stuff, as long as we don't go into your domicile. We would need a search warrant for your domicile, but we can go in and then dig around in your barns and everything else, and there isn't crap you can do about it.
I'll never forget, I was the special agent in charge in the Cleveland FBI field office. So I had all of Northern Ohio. And you talk about learning something. And I I'm just like a week or two into the job. So I'm learning the domain. What do we have and all that. Somebody comes into my office and he goes, "Hey, boss, the Border Patrol did a car stop and they want us to, they found something interesting they want us to take a look at." And I said, hold on a minute. I'm sorry. Did you just say, we're in Cleveland, right? Yes. I said, the Border Patrol did a car stop here in Cleveland, Ohio? And they said, yes. And I said, I don't understand. And they explained that Lake Erie is an international border.
Yeah. And so it makes all the, like, Chicago's a border town, Washington, D.C. is a border town. And you look up in the Northeast with where you got all those small states like Connecticut and Maine and all that, pretty much the entire Northeast, that little pocket up there, y'all are all screwed.
People now need to understand. This is why you need to buy Jenn's latest book. All right. So the training sounds like it was deficient then. I can only imagine what it looks like now. What are you hearing about how long the training is and what's missing? Anything there?
Border Patrol is saying that their training is still the same. CBP, I believe, is saying that their training is still the same. But, like I just demonstrated, it's fairly inadequate. You could walk up to any field agent out here and ask them, what's the difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause? And 9 out of 10 of them aren't going to be able to answer that question.
Sure.
And so what happens is agents like me with a little bit more education and can write a little bit better, we end up doing all the narratives for all these agents in court documents. And then what you see too down here, and in my studies after leaving the Border Patrol, is the agents tend to use canned narratives. And so they're actually all wrong, and they'll have the wrong names. They'll even misgender the person, like, not intentionally trying to misgender as we would think of it nowadays.
They're just cutting and pasting.
They're just cutting and pasting. That's what they're doing. And so what has happened in the immigration courts and even in the U.S. district courts and so forth is there's this, what in legal terms is, as you know, regularity, where we're presumed in our documents to be telling the truth. And the courts presume that and assume that. And the attorneys involved in the cases assume that, and they never call us in. So I've never been called in as a Border Patrol agent to testify about my testimony. We are just believed because 99.9% of the people that we are making these charges on have committed the crime of sneaking into our country in the middle of the night, and all the propaganda that's around that. And they've trained everybody to think that there are legal ways when there really aren't, and there haven't been. And so there's a prejudice. There's a prejudice there among the courts, especially in immigration and stuff. And the idea is, well, these Border Patrol agents have a hard job and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they just let us get away with it. But what you're seeing now is when they come into your cities, that's just typical Border Patrol behavior when I see it. The ramming of the cars, the lying. And this is why they're lying, Frank, is because they have been getting away with this type of behavior. So what you're seeing is normal behavior and what they've been allowed to get away with because our victims are undocumented.
Wow. So that, you know what, that's a different take than what we usually hear, right? That essentially we're seeing it because it's in our cities now, but this goes on as a matter of course.
Yeah, everybody on the southern border are all like, Wow. Like, I mean, the ramming of the vehicles, the Renee Good, when he put himself in front of her, I was like, here he goes. We know since the perf report from 2013, we're not supposed to do that, but here he goes once again. They just constantly do that out here. And even though they've been told over and over not to do this, they still get away with it. No Border Patrol agent has ever been convicted of a use of force killing while on duty in over 101 years of existence.
Yeah, that's important to understand. That's a little factoid. Wow. So you experienced this 5 or 6 years, right? In the agency.
Yeah, 6 years.
And you write in your memoir, which, by the way, you describe as kind of a healing process. The process, the decision to write the book is to help heal from trauma. And I want to talk about what you witnessed inside the Border Patrol, which you've described as a culture of corruption, a sexual harassment, even a rape culture.
Yeah.
Tell us what it's like from the inside.
If you're a woman going into United States Border Patrol, you will be told within the first week from the other women ahead of you. Hopefully, you will be told. That's what I was told. It'll either be taken from you or you will give of it freely. It was taken from me, my hazing into the Border Patrol as a female agent to become, as they call us, the fierce 5%, because there's only 5% of women who can only make it through. They like to say, oh, it's because it's such hard work and this. No, it's because they're sexually assaulting us into the agency. So the women you see in the Border Patrol are coming from some very dire circumstances themselves, and they need these jobs very much. And they put up with it. And in the book, I talk about my classmate, Karen, who made it through, tough woman, just like I was, and she needed the job very much. And, you know, she saw what happened to me. And so she told me one night, I'm going to date your law instructor. And I'm like, well, that's not appropriate. And
Well, even that concept of the law instructor.
yeah, my
Thank you.
law instructor. And I was like, but she made the point, you know, but then they won't come after me. And because he was an instructor, you know, obviously the trainees and then the other instructors would be like, whoa, she's off limits. And that's how she protected herself. And so I got an education in survival as a woman in some of these systems and so forth. And then on graduation night,
you're saying you were assaulted.
Yeah, I was raped by a classmate. And
I had in the academy.
Oh yeah, in the academy. Frank, they started letting women into the Border Patrol in 1975, and our very first Latina agent, a very first a Mexican-American woman agent by the name of Ernestina Lopez. She gave an interview a year or two ago, and it's on Reveal News. It's called The Fearless 5%. And she talked about being the first Latina in the Border Patrol and how her classmate raped her like mine did me 20 years later, and how the agency covered up for it. And the men in the agency do not say honor first, which is the motto of the Border Patrol. They say on her first. Right. And they are taught this by the chiefs all the way down. And we can see this today as the current chief of the Border Patrol has just been announced to be engaging in sexual tourism, which is illegal for federal agents and so forth. This is constant throughout the U.S. Border Patrol. We just lost 2 chiefs in 2023 and 2024. The deputy chief of the Border Patrol for allegedly insisting that female agents put out and have sex if they want to keep their positions. And this is just, you know, this is a man's agency is how it's told to you. And the only women who get promoted are the ones that help cover up the rape culture. And so what I ask people to think about is that if they're doing this to their female agents, what do you think they're doing to the children and the migrants? And it's not to say that every Border Patrol agent is a rapist. I am not saying that. But what I am saying is that every Border Patrol agent knows that this is going on. Right. And every Border Patrol agent knows about the system to cover it up and how it works.
What you're describing is a culture. Yeah.
It's a culture. It's institutional. And it's not to say that it's better or worse than other agencies, but I have been around a lot of FBI. I have been around a lot of CIA, and in fact was taught investigations by an FBI agent before I joined, and had amazing experiences with these men who were professional and taught me how to be a real law enforcement officer. And it's not to say there's not some of those in those agencies.
Sure.
And there is a need for security on our borders, but these agencies are hopelessly corrupt. And I want people to remember that these are the same agencies that failed at 9/11, and not a single one of them was held accountable. And then they created this monster. So the same agencies that failed at 9/11, the same managers are the ones that then created CBP, ICE, and then brought in Border Patrol, which had heavy influence over the creation of what we see now. And this is why we see the oversight agencies that act as internal affairs for the immigration agencies are basically filled with ex-agents. And so it's a bro system. It's the worst kind of fraternity that you've ever seen.
Fox guarding the hen house with regard to internal affairs, for sure. When we talk about corruption and cover up, I've got to mention, and I want you to talk about the HBO documentary, Critical Incident, death at the border,
Mhm.
which I want to check out. I haven't seen it yet. But you were part of that. Tell us about what that documentary is about.
So there was a NGO down here, Southern Border Community Coalition, that had asked me to look at one case from 2010 in which an undocumented migrant who had been living in San Diego for like over 20 years was beaten to death and tased to death down here at the port of entry. And I looked at it and I was surprised to see that San Diego Police Department had adequately documented the corruption of evidence and what the illegal critical incident teams did. So people need to understand that Border Patrol does not have the authority to investigate themselves for use of force violations. They do not have the authority to do full investigations like the FBI does, like CBP does. Mm-hmm. And so what the Border Patrol did in the late 1980s, 87, down here in San Diego, they had killed like 24 people in 1 year, which was a lot for one sector. And so because they were seeing a lot of civil payments that they were having to make out to these families, they then created the critical incident teams, CITs or SITs. And what we told the professional investigators, like our local sheriffs, FBI, and everybody else who does have the authority to investigate those issues, use of force issues, is that, oh, we just are here to help you and facilitate as a liaison. You know, if you need this agent, I'll get this agent. Do you need this? Blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But really what we were told privately in our law enforcement sensitive use of force handbooks was, call the SIT teams in first and they will fix the evidence and make it match the narrative. And that's how we will do this. And the chief involved in this case that I was looking at was Chief Rodney Scott. And Chief Scott, he ordered the agents to basically get rid of evidence. He used an administrative immigration subpoena to get his medical records. He had agents go to the autopsy, which they have no business doing. I mean, can you imagine, Frank, if somebody had killed your wife and then their family is involved in the investigation and sitting in on the autopsy and stuff? I mean, it's just like, this is just corrupt as hell.
Yeah.
And so we're the ones that determine the evidence. We're the ones, and then we make it so that even if it is a good case, the evidence is handled so poorly because it's handled by our critical incident teams that were secretly trained in the federal law enforcement training centers by our own Border Patrol agents who do not have that authority to act as evidence technicians.
Right.
And so they're contaminating the evidence as they're collecting it and stuff. And so by the time, in the few handful of cases that actually do get to court over the years, your prosecutors are prosecutors, even if they're doing a good job, they cannot use this evidence because it's contaminated. So we're covering ourselves all the way. And that's why we never get held accountable for this. And I had started investigating this when HBO came around and said, we want to do a film. And I said, well, I happen to be doing this. Why don't you just follow me while I do this? And that case, what I was specifically looking for to prove the coordination between the illegal cover-up teams and the union attorneys that they were using to defend those agents. And I had one document where the judge said, are we ready to go to court? And this union attorney wrote back, why, yes, sir, I am ready to go to court. I have the San Diego PD report and I have the critical incident team report. And I was like, oh, what?
Uh-huh. Wow.
What? And yet the defense attorney, everybody else doesn't have that critical incident team report. So they're using this to corrupt the court cases and everything else.
And it would breed a culture where agents feel like, hey, I'm immune. If I get involved in a critical incident, shoot somebody or what have you, use of force, this team's going to come in, have my back. Yep. They'll take care of me. And I need not worry. And now that would seemingly lead to more violence and more aggression without fear.
It's the impunity that you see in your streets today. And the sad part about all this, Frank, is that, I mean, HBO, you can only see it on HBO. They will not give any of us who were involved in it a CD. They won't let us go out and present it to people and give talks. So it's going to disappear. Now it's up for an Emmy and a Peabody Award. So they're kind of going to have trouble with that. But I can't even get a copy of it. They can't talk about it, can't do anything about it without getting sued. Yeah. And it's going to be erased. And the sad part about it is, like, when it first came out, some of the reviews, someone said, well, this was a crime that occurred a long time ago. And I'm like, it's relevant now because the Chief Rodney Scott is now the commissioner of CBP. And he testified before Congress a couple of weeks ago when Rand Paul was questioning him and ICE Director Lyons. And he asked Rodney Scott about the Preddy shooting. And Rodney Scott testified to him, yes, my CBP OPR, which is Office of Professional Responsibility, is the one handling the evidence in the Preddy case. And I was like, because unfortunately what Biden did is he had the opportunity to disband those units, which he did, and come forward and have truth hearings about what was done and all this other stuff, and admit what we did and try and make the Border Patrol accountable and better off for it, and everybody could maybe gain some trust and this and that. No, he rolled them into CBP OPR, which legalized him. So those guys and women that were wearing those Border Patrol SIT team shirts took them off and put on a CBP OPR shirt, and they're doing the same thing. There's been no accountability. So what he admitted to was, I'm using the corrupt illegal teams that I used as a Border Patrol chief, and now I'm doing it to the good shooting and to the Preddy shooting. And I'm like, and you see the Democratic politicians aren't talking about it. When you watch the movie, and you'll have to watch it soon, Frank, because it's going to disappear.
It'll be gone.
You'll see Senator, I think Senator Padilla is in it. And all he can muster is, well, if this is true, this is really bad. And it's like, oh, come on. And I couldn't figure out why they weren't talking about it, because they have this film out there right now, Frank, to really hammer on what's going on and the illegalities and the brutality, and they won't say a word about it. And his staff said that they were afraid of appearing anti-law enforcement, anti-Border Patrol, and they felt that going to the unaccompanied children facilities and focusing on how they're being treated, which is important, but focusing on that as opposed to focusing on the illegal critical incident seems was a better political move for him. And I'm like, oh God.
So since we're on the topic of investigating use of force, even deadly use of force, let's talk about the horrible incidents we've seen in our streets.
Okay.
In Minneapolis, Renee Good, Alex Preddy, but also I think it's important to help our listeners. And boy, your latest book helps us with that. There's an alphabet soup of DHS agencies out there that is confusing. Even I see experienced TV news anchors screwing this up on a regular basis. CBP shot this person. No, it was ICE. No, everything is ICE. Everything was like, no, it was border. No, that was Border Patrol. They don't know the difference between CBP and Border Patrol. Can you try, succinctly to give us the lowdown on these three letters of agencies that we just keep seeing on our streets?
Okay. So ICE, there are three immigration enforcement agencies: ICE, CBP, and Border Patrol. ICE, they're all under DHS. And under DHS, you have ICE and CBP. ICE are the people that don't typically wear uniforms. You'll see them with the bulletproof vests or jackets that say ICE ERO or ICE HSI. They're all ICE. And what they're supposed to do is they are in charge of getting what we would call criminal aliens, people who have been adjudicated to have committed crimes, out of the country. And so once somebody commits a crime like that, if it violates their immigration status to what they've agreed to be here legally, then ICE can, with a formal deportation order, go and get that person and remove them from the country with the deportation order. CBP is a separate agency from ICE. Those are typically what we like to think of as customs. They're the people in blue at your ports of entry where you have to say, yep, I'm bringing some wine back from Mexico or whatever.
Yeah, you come home from vacation, you go through the airport, that's
Yep.
CBP.
Yeah, your international areas.
All
And
right.
they do, they have a lot of different areas to get into, a lot of different professions and stuff that require a lot of education and so forth.
Yeah.
And then under CBP now is Border Patrol. It is a separate agency, but is being held within CBP now. So while every Border Patrol agent is technically a CBP officer, not every CBP officer is a Border Patrol agent.
That's
And
very
so
helpful.
Border Patrol agents are the ones in green. That's what I was. And we typically work in between the ports of entry to try and interdict anybody or any goods that are coming across without inspection. That's the difference.
Got it. That's helpful. And now one of the takeaways I have from what you just explained was we are taking people completely out of their element, whether it's the agents, CBP agents at the airport who we say hello to when we come back from vacation, or are checking airplanes and cargo for bad stuff. And we're taking ICE agents who have a pretty straightforward mission. If you've been adjudicated to have committed a crime, you're going bye-bye. That's a pretty straightforward job. And we're taking Border Patrol agents who are supposed to interdict people trying to come across unlawfully. And we're putting all of them on our streets in our cities doing things that typically they're not asked to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to note, Frank, that we see that CBP has been overtaken by the Border Patrol. So when we think about the three agencies, you think about the most professional. I would say CBP is probably the most professional. Then you have ICE. ICE is made up of a lot of former Border Patrol agents. That's why it's less professional. But they're restricted in that they're supposed to be restricted, and they're typically looking for people who've been adjudicated as criminals. But Border Patrol is the most rogue, the most least educated, least accountable of all the agencies. And this is why Trump has brought Border Patrol in, and they have taken over CBP management, and they have also taken over ICE's management. And that is offensive. You know damn well that is offensive. You would be mad if the president said, I'm going to pull somebody from ATF and put them in charge of the FBI. All the FBI would be like, what?
This was a notable transition that we saw. And I chalked it up to, well, you've already characterized it correctly, but the quota was not necessarily being met. This might not have been aggressive enough for Trump, and professionalism. We can't have that. And so all of a sudden we see this announcement where there's a little guy named Greg Bovino, who's given the title Commander at Large, right?
It's not even a rank in the Border Patrol.
No, it's a new thing. It's a new thing. It's like making Kristi Noem, giving her the Shield of the Americas or something.
Yeah, Ice Barbie. Yeah.
Here comes this, and we all, those of us in law enforcement talked about this. We're like, wait a minute. This marks a sea change. You've got some head thumping coming here. And tell us what you know about Mr. Greg Bovino, the former commander at large that was put in charge of all of this mess.
Greg Bovino has a characteristic that I say most Border Patrol agents have, and it was a characteristic of me when I entered, and that's low self-esteem. Because as they say in the federal service, if the FBI or nobody else would take you, the Border Patrol will, baby. And so you can have DUIs, you can have prior sexual assaults. The Border Patrol will take you and act like they have no idea that you have prior sexual assaults. Bovino, he's, as an agent, he's always been kind of, at least since he was the El Centro sector chief, and El Centro is the desert of California, literal desert. He's always been a show off. He would force the local reporters over there in El Centro to film him swimming the canals and all sorts of, he's like this, he's my age. He's a 50-year-old man who's still trying to, bring back his heyday of when he was out there in the 90s or whatever. I don't know.
It's like Vladimir Putin shirtless on top of a horse.
That's exactly what it is. And so he does all this, and then he auditioned for it. So the very first raid he did was in Kern County, California, during the Palisades fire, right in the beginning of like January, right around that area. And he just kind of did that on his own to gain the attention, and it got him the attention that he wanted. I refer to him as the Liberace of the Border Patrol, because he's just a teeny tiny little man who just wants to be on camera more than anything. That's what he wants. He does not care what his agents are doing. He allows them to do whatever they want. He encourages the violence. And then, I mean, you saw him after the shootings of Good and Pretty, sitting there calling the agents saying, you did a good job, you're going to be a hero, every agent's going to buy you a beer. And they do become heroes in these agencies, regardless of if they're considered good shoots or bad shoots, because every shoot in the Border Patrol is a good shoot, according to them. And it just shows the level of unprofessionalism where you see them come out and say this stuff, Frank. It's just embarrassing. But Bovino thought he could ride that line, and you know, and then he just went too far.
What was his time as in the field? What were his stats like? Was he considered to be leading a great enterprise, or what did that look like?
No, I mean, El Centro is, you know, all the sectors go through various ups and downs as far as traffic and when they're busy and stuff. But El Centro lately has been known for the last decade as one of the least areas. It's not well crossed because it's very dangerous, and it's literal sand dunes and not even any brush that you can hide under like you can during the Sonoran Desert. And so it's very wide open. Most people don't cross out there. They have the fewest crossings in the last 4 or 5 years, and yet they still have the most use of force incidents. And so we see incidents when Bovino is in charge of, like, I think during the first Trump administration, we saw there was an agent out there who ran over a Guatemalan man, was caught on camera. And, you know, and then there's all this argument going, but that kind of stuff is normal. That kind of stuff is normal out there for El Centro. So while they have the fewest people crossing, they're beating up more people than anybody else there.
Right. So, I mean, you're having fewer engagements than other sectors, but yet you're beating the crap out of people.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, it's like, and that came from the Project on Government Oversight, POGO, POGO. They're the ones that discovered that. And so he, you know, he has quite a reputation. I know there was a Chicago outlet who discovered that, you know, one of his big things is, I'm out here to catch people who are coming into our country and drinking and driving and killing your mom and your sister. His father drank and drive when he was young and killed a mother and left a family without their mother. And after he resigned the Border Patrol, and after this article came out about his dad, he then had a t-shirt printed of his dad's bar that's defunct because they lost it years ago because of this DUI arrest and the killing that he did. And it has the bar logo, like he's really proud of his dad for killing that mother. This is how nasty these men are, Frank.
Yeah,
this is how nasty the leaders are. And so when you like, people ask me like, how did these Border Patrol agents and ICE agents get to be so mean? And I'm like, we've been down here on the border for 30 plus years, sending people to their deaths and not allowing them to cross legally. I mean, away with everything. This is what it is.
Yeah, good point. Hey, if we can, we've got a clip of little Mr. Bovino. Sean, if we could play that for if we can stomach it, let's try to play that clip of Bovino.
We need mass deportations because, as we touched on earlier, that character of a nation, the very character of a nation can be changed very quickly when there's tens of millions of individuals that don't hold your values, whether the Great Britain, the folks that have came into Great Britain or Sweden or France. Those individuals, do they come in and hold the values that you hold dear, ma'am? Same thing here in the United States. What I saw on the ground in those major cities is a very large population of illegal aliens that don't hold our values dear. To me, that's even scarier than that individual criminal and or terrorist that may be in our nation. We can always get them.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh my! I couldn't see what his shirt said, but okay, I mean, in the Border Patrol, they still say illegal aliens. It's a big sticking point with them.
Right.
But what Bovino failed to say is what he usually calls them, and what we usually call them are tonks. And we use that in the Border Patrol because we started having problems in the 60s and 70s with the fact that the majority of our agents were Latino. And a lot of our agents were using racist terms from back in the day, like wetback and whatnot and all this other stuff. So they taught us to say the word tonk. And tonk is the sound our flashlights make when we hit an illegal in the head.
Holy mackerel.
We have T-shirts that have the flashlight that say, yeah, you know what it means, and this and that.
Wow.
And they've even testified, chiefs have testified to this. In Texas, they say tonke. But what it was done to do is to get our Latino agents to feel that we white agents were not, and our white managers were not being racist. And so he's even being even slyer in this, in that he's being careful of how he speaks and stuff. Because usually he'd say, these effing tonks is what he would say. And it's interesting. He says, when I look around, I see all these illegal aliens. Well, he'll also tell you as a chief that he gets reasonable suspicion, and he doesn't stop his agents don't stop people based on their color of their skin. But he just said, when I look around,
that's right,
and I see these illegal aliens.
Yeah.
When you say that, you're saying, when I look around and see brown people. That's what you're saying.
I see brown people.
And that's the truth. And you and I know
that. Don't share, or as he pointed out to the British interviewer, if you see those French and those Swedes, they don't share your values. So,
Oh, the shirt says "Turn and Burn."
Burn.
U.S. Border Patrol. So turn and burn. Do you know what that is, Frank?
No, I don't.
That is just be as violent as you can.
Yeah.
Burn it all down.
Right.
Rip it all up. That's what they believe. And this chief is the one who spent American taxpayer dollars on a video called Isaiah 6:8. And this chief actually believes, like Rodney Scott actually believes this too. So a lot of our management in the Border Patrol are white nationalists. And this is a problem that we had after 9/11. I don't know if the FBI had it, but in the immigration agencies, hardcore recruiting from Turning Point USA, hardcore recruiting from a lot of these organizations that facilitate this kind of thinking and this behavior. And we have a problem. And this video that Bovino put out, I'll have to send it to you. He actually has an agent sitting back in the truck, and he's in his green uniform, and he's reading Isaiah 6:8 that basically says, you need to lay waste to this land so that we can get rid of all the sin, and then holiness will grow. So you need to go in and kill and burn everything to the ground. And I'm the one that's going to do it. And I said, and then they show themselves handing tear gas canisters to each other. There's a whole significant portion of Border Patrol who really believe that they are doing this for the Christian right. Yeah. And this is a problem. And Bovino is one of them. Bovino.
Well, and so this has been an incredible insight, because we've been focusing on, Hegseth and the Christian nationalist mindset pervading the military, and we're on a mission from God. And now you're sharing, at least for the first time with me, for me, that no, this is not unique to the Pentagon. This is happening and has been happening at Border Patrol.
No, and that's the reason why Rodney Scott is in there. Rodney Scott is known among the Border Patrol as a very devout evangelical. His father preached end of days and so forth. Rodney Scott has a high school diploma. He's never handled, he doesn't have advanced degrees. He's never handled anything like this, but yet he's up there because he's willing to do whatever he's told to do. And he's very tight with Hegseth. My understanding from my sources are that, that meeting that Hegseth had when he brought all the generals in from all over the world to tell them that they needed to be fitter and not have beards and shit like that.
No beards. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Waste of money. But my understanding is that Rodney Scott was there. So, and there's no reason for federal agents to be in the military, and you see it, the blurring of the line between the military. I mean, we don't even have Border Patrol down here. It's just military. It's ridiculous. Absolutely.
Well, so I want to spend the very short time we have remaining trying to get more positive about accountability
Okay.
and what reform would even look like in the last few minutes we have, Jen. And accountability, I mean, includes the state of Minnesota right now. And Sean, you can throw up that headline if you'd like. The state of Minnesota very much trying to hold accountable these agencies by attempting to launch state investigations. Jen, do you think those are going to get anywhere? You've just described a culture of cover up and corruption. Do you think state investigations will get us anywhere?
I think that's where we need to put pressure. So I have, a lot of people when I talk, they're like, "Oh, after you talk, I'm so sad and depressed."
Yes.
But I know. But I have more hope than I've had in the past because they're seeing it now. You all are seeing it now. And when I wrote my first book years ago, everyone's like, "Oh, she's just bitter and this and that." And it's like, okay, but
Yeah.
and now you all see it. And so I address in my new book, ICE, what everyone needs to know is that your state and local agencies can definitely bring charges, use of force charges against these agents. And anybody who's telling you that just because they are federal and on
Right.
duty at the time that they can't, they are full of shite.
You mean J.D. Vance is lying to us when he says that the states have no authority over
No,
federal
he's lying.
agencies?
And
Shocking.
even in the Border Patrol use of force handbook, I just checked the latest one, 2021 guide. They state in there, if you commit a use of force action, you need to expect that you will likely be investigated and might have charges brought against you by state and local agencies.
That's right.
Even when we started this, there was that one shooting in Texas, I think in San Antonio area at a ICE checkpoint that we didn't know about and we just now found about. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
They kept it out of the media for a year.
Was this the South Padre Island?
I think so.
South
Yeah,
Padre
and
Island.
the young man died. They said,
Yeah.
"Oh, he tried to run over our agents," and then we see he was
Yeah,
just
American citizen, and the local or the state highway patrol covered it up with them. Yeah.
Right. And so, but guess who they allowed to investigate that? And they didn't have any squawk about that. Texas Rangers. Why is
Mhm.
that? Because on the southern border, DHS, Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE control most of our state and local law enforcement with money.
Money. Task forces, overtime for task forces, all of that good stuff.
Yes, JTTF, all that stuff. That's a long discussion to have too. So, but yes, we can do accountability, and we need you to put pressure on your state and local officials to not listen to this bullshit or mainstream media is like, no, they can't investigate. Yes,
Well,
they can.
in the headlines right today, real briefly, is the city of Houston, Texas, where the mayor had said, hey, listen, our Houston PD is not going to cooperate with ICE. We'll do some cooperation, but we're not sitting around. Our officers can't sit around for an hour waiting for ICE to show up and check somebody out that we stopped. It's not going to happen. Here comes Governor Abbott saying, I'm pulling all the money out of the city of Houston if you don't change your tune. And guess what happened today? The mayor of Houston said, our police will cooperate with ICE. And
and a lot of these local and state PD can't function at the level that they're functioning at without all this overtime for their officers and all these grants that come from DHS and so forth. So we have to demand accountability. There are lots of ways to do that. I have lots of ideas, and we talk about it in the book and everything. But we need our state and local officials and our federal officials to get some backbone.
Good advice for us to engage with our local county law enforcement. It's hard, but ask them some hard questions about, hey, what is the level of cooperation with ICE and why? And how much of our money's going toward a federal cause that we don't really want happening here.
Right.
What in the last remaining minute, what does can reform happen now, or must we wait for Trump to move on?
No, I think we need to be pushing for our leaders to do reform right now. one of the biggest things that I argue for, and it's one of the easiest, and I wish somebody would put a bill up for it, is you know how it is when you go to enter these agencies, you have to give your digits, right? So
Yeah.
they could check and see if you're in AFIS, the Automated Finger Identification System, or something like that. So they
Yeah.
check their fingerprints, right, to see if you have prior. Why aren't we doing that with their DNA? I mean, do we really want, because I can name off the top of my head a handful, if not more, agents in the Border Patrol who raped for their entire careers and would have been found out had we had their DNA. Being a
Wow.
police officer is not a
Wow.
right. It is a privilege, and you have to give up some of your rights if you want to carry that gun and that
So you're
badge.
wow. Have you proposed this to any member of Congress to do that?
I don't know that I've proposed
Yeah.
it to any member of
Yeah.
Congress, but I've been writing about it for like a year. That
You're suggesting the mere act of running fingerprints and DNA of sitting DHS agents,
Yeah.
particularly perhaps Border Patrol, would identify criminals.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would kick out a whole lot of these bad agents. It would definitely help with the rape culture. Another thing that could be reformed right now is the Border Patrol union, CBP union, are illegal.
How
You
so?
know, the FBI doesn't have a
We don't have a
bargaining
union.
unit.
Don't have a union. No.
Right. And the reason why you don't have a bargaining unit in the FBI is because the FBI is designated as a security agency. And Border Patrol and CBP were not designated as security agencies because we did not have that much to do with intelligence back in the day when I was an agent. Well, when Donald Trump got in 2019, he designated them as that. Well, legally under 5 USC 7112, lowercase b, number 6,
Yeah.
you cannot have a bargaining unit. But why did he keep that? Why didn't he get rid of him? Well, he actually doubled the amount of agents in the Border Patrol who could act as full-time union members. And he used them to then, when Biden was president, to go around saying that the border was open and to argue for the closure of the border, the asylum system, which caused more people to cross illegally, which gave them the optics of their invasion that they wanted. And so he used the union, and the union behaved as basically a PR campaign for Donald Trump while they were serving under Biden.
I'll never forget this. I at the White House, Trump, it's a first administration. I think he's accepting his nomination from the party to run again. And he does it, he decides to do it on the lawn of the White House. And in the back, there's Border Patrol union reps in their shirts. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And you know, when he won, when it was announced that he won the second time, this last one, guess who was flown to Mar-a-Lago to party? Yeah.
Union?
You know, this is why the former president of the Border Patrol Union, when he resigned, was given the ambassadorship to Chile. Are you kidding me? You're giving a regular, he's not even a supervisory level Border Patrol agent, and you gave him
I didn't know
a
that
position as an ambassador? I mean, it'd be like giving me. I mean, I like to think I'm smart, but I shouldn't be the ambassador.
We should give you you get to choose a nice Caribbean place if you like.
I mean, it's insane. And so they still have the union. And what does the union do today? They are the mouthpiece on Fox News, OAN. They won't go on MS Now. They won't go on any other outlet. And they're just a mouthpiece, and they just spread lies.
All right. Listen, you have given us, not only do I feel like taking a shower now because of the corruption we just described, but also you've given us some motivation to do some things, not only to engage with our local law enforcement about ICE involvement, but also we should be talking to our federal lawmakers about how to reform now, things that we can do now, and things like rapists in the midst of Border Patrol that allegedly had vetting and backgrounds done on them. We should be cleaning that up. That should be a no-brainer. You've also inspired us to check out your 2 books. And for folks, the new book is ICE, What Everyone Needs to Know. The first book, Jenn's memoir, Against the Wall, My Journey from Border Patrol Agent to Immigrant Rights Activist. I have homework. I'm going to watch the HBO documentary death at the border. Do I have that right? Death at the border?
Death at the border.
Yeah. Critical incident.
Critical incident, death at the border.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be checking that out. I'll get the popcorn and be more depressed. And I may have to have you back, Jenn. Thank you.
I hope you do. I love talking to you.
Your insights have been illuminating, to say the least. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we've got some big guests coming up that I'm not going to announce yet because it's really exciting. I'll see you next time, everybody. Stay safe. Thanks.